I am Captain Hastings, and I set down these curious events exactly as they occurred to me in the summer of 1932, trusting that the narrative method, plain, straightforward, and unbroken from first page to last, may illuminate every clue Hercule Poirot judged essential in the extraordinary matter of the Thames steamer mystery. The invitation arrived on a blustery June morning. I had called at Whitehaven Mansions to find my old friend seated at his breakfast, one perfect croissant, steaming chocolate, and the morning's Times folded to the art column. "Mon ami Hastings," he chirped, "you behold a man torn between boredom and vanity. They entreat me to lecture on criminal psychology aboard the Silver Swan during a 3-day cruise to Oxford and back. The organizer insists a certain famous Belgian lends a claw to her floating salon." I laughed. Why hesitate? A leisurely voyage upriver, cultured company, good cuisine, it sounds capital. Poirot tapped the newspaper. "There is also this, a small but notable exhibition of paintings will travel with us, comprising modern French works and certain old masters never before seen outside private walls. And yet, TNs. I read rumors of claimants disputing ownerships dating from 1918, when fortunes were desperate and sales clouded by duress. Where there are unsettled titles, there is the scent of mischief. An hour later we strolled across Russell Square to the Hotel Lancaster, where Lady Constance Bream, hostess, philanthropist, widow of the shipping magnate, received us in a suite awash with roses. In her early 50s, tall, aquiline, gray eyes brisk with command, she addressed Poirot almost brusquely. "I'm told you are the only man alive who can spot a rogue before he's stolen the teaspoons. Good. I've collected an art loan worth 40,000 guineas and 80 guests worth rather less, though 2 are titled, 3 are bankers, and all are vain enough to think my cruise the event of the season. The collection will be guarded, but insurance underwriters demanded visible deterrence. That deterrence, M. Poirot, is you." Poirot's fingertips met in a modest steeple. "With pleasure, madam. But tell me, who selected these pictures?" "Professor Edwin Trent, Slade School, our resident scholar. He swears there is nothing contentious except," she broke off, lips thinning. "Except one Cezanne, a still life of pears. A Viennese Jewish family claims the work was relinquished under wartime duress. Yet my lender, Sir Hugo Belfort, bought it openly at Sotheby's in 20. The dispute is not in English courts, yet." Poirot murmured, "A painting that 2 parties love is always at risk." "Exactly. We have placed it in a steel case during transit and shall display it only during afternoon viewings. Sir Hugo himself is coming, he'll want to parade it. I warn you, the man thrives on notoriety." Lady Constance thrust an embossed passenger list into my hand. "Familiarize yourselves, gentlemen. We embark at 8 tomorrow from Lambeth Pier." Morning sunshine dappled the Thames as the Silver Swan, sleek, white-painted, 3 decks with Art Deco railings, pulled from the quay under chuffing engines and a faint aroma of grilled kippers. Uniformed stewards hurried among trunks, a military band on the wharf sawed through Rule Britannia. I helped Poirot aboard, then we took stock of our companions. Sir Hugo Belfort, short, boulder-browed, mustached like a walrus, boomed greetings to all and sundry while clutching a gold-headed cane. His daughter, Iris, dark haircut and severe bob, scarlet mouth, a chic severity, glided beside him. Professor Trent, tall, stooped, pince-nez glimmering, fussed over a ledger. Leonora Trent, his niece and research assistant, kept pace with a stack of catalogues, her eyes intelligent yet wary. Colonel Geoffrey Darnley, recently retired after colonial service, strode the deck, heavy jaw set against imagined mutinies. Behind him fluttered Mrs. Darnley, bird-like, dripping pearls. Father Anselm Keene, Irish Dominican, broad-shouldered, face withered, conversed earnestly with William Merrick, a thin solicitor representing the Silesian Restitution League, here, so he said, to observe. Add to these Mr. Felix Gardiner, soft-voiced dealer in continental art, Miss Phoebe Lyle, bright journalist for the Illustrated Chronicle, and the Honorable Algernon Fordham, a languid dilettante who claimed to compose epigrams professionally. Finally, there was Mr. Noah Bly, tall American with shock of silver hair and a sunblasted complexion. He told me he financed archaeological digs in Mesopotamia but fancied a civilized jaunt before heading east. The Salon and 8 companion canvases occupied a locked saloon on the lower deck. Aft, 2 armed guards from Argus security stood post day and night. Lady Constance produced the only key, a heavy brass affair. She passed it, ostensibly for safekeeping, to Captain Wyndham, skipper of the steamer, who deposited it in a small steel strongbox bolted to the wheelhouse bulkhead and sealed it with red wax. "There," she said with satisfaction. "If any scoundrel reaches that picture now, he deserves it." Poirot smiled thinly. "Scoundrels, madam, often possess ingenuity proportionate to their desires." Day 1 unfolded in pleasant routine: luncheon of smoked salmon, Poirot's opening lecture on the psychology of evidence, lazy observation of green banks sliding past Maidenhead. I found Phoebe Lyle delightful company, keen humor, shorthand pad ever at the ready. Sir Hugo cornered her and trumpeted scandalous anecdotes about rival collectors. That evening, a full moon silvered the river. A jazz trio played foxtrots on the promenade deck as couples danced. Iris Belfort, aloof by day, now surrendered to rhythmic abandon with Fordham. Leonora Trent watched from shadows, her gaze unreadable. Shortly after 10, Colonel Darnley buttonholed me. "Observe that American Bligh." "What?" "Standing aft, scowling at the water. Doesn't like crowds. Mark my words, a fellow with secrets. Hastings though I am not wholly dense." "Colonel, you served in Mesopotamia?" "Baghdad, 25, saw every desert smuggler alive." Bligh bears the stamp. If antiquities go walkabout here, look his way. At 11:30, the band retired. I retired likewise. Poirot, who had apologized early, claiming dinge in the evening air oppressed his sinuses, was already in our adjoining cabin, polishing patent leather shoes. He looked up. "You enjoyed yourself, mon ami?" "Very much." Though Darnley fancies Bligh a potential brigand. Poirot set aside his cloth. The colonel's mustache bristles at anyone outside the club window. "But listen, Hastings. Did you remark Sir Hugo's cane? Eboniste, gold crook, vulgar as himself." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "The ornament unscrews. Inside is space sufficient for a rolled canvas a la miniature. I noted him twist it twice then glance about. Curious, NSCE pa?" I whistled. "You think he might smuggle his own picture away?" "Who knows? But remember, when a man draws attention like fireworks, he may seek to distract from quieter designs." He yawned elaborately. "Now, we sleep. Tomorrow brings the viewing, and with it, perhaps, revelations." I awoke to commotion. A steward hammered at my door. "Beg pardon, sir, Dr. Trent requests Captain Hastings at the exhibition salon at once." Half-dressed, I hurried along the corridor. The air smelled faintly metallic, a cruel pre-echo of disaster. At the guarded doorway a crowd pressed, Lady Constance, white-faced, Iris clutching her father's arm, Merrick and Father Keane conferring, Colonel Darnley barking questions. Inside, under stark overhead bulbs that flickered with the engine's thrum, lay Felix Gardiner the art dealer, crumpled upon the patterned carpet, face turned sideways, one cheek muddy with blood. A gash marred his temple, but worse than the wound was the circumstance: the saloon was locked from within. Captain Wyndham brandished the brass key, still sealed, unbroken, in its waxed strongbox. Guards swore no one had passed since midnight. Windows, oval portholes, remained bolted from the inside, no sign of forced entry. Professor Trent shook visibly. His watch had stopped at 3:05. He must have been examining the Salon. "Oh Lord, has anything been taken?" Lady Constance advanced. Her fingers, normally steady, rattled the key she had retrieved. She turned the lock. The heavy glass-fronted case stood intact. Inside, the Salon, a small degas, of Vuillard, all seemed in place. Yet Poirot, stepping softly through the throng, drew my attention to something odd. Gardiner's right hand clutched not a weapon but a white silk handkerchief embroidered with a tiny black beetle. "Eh bien," murmured Poirot, "the moment arrived sooner than I feared." "What do you mean?" That, mon ami, is no handkerchief belonging to M. Gardiner. It is the calling card of a very singular mind. The captain secured the saloon, posted additional guards, and summoned the constabulary to await our arrival at Henley. Meanwhile, Poirot commenced his inquiry. He moved first to Iris Belfort, whose composure had shattered. She trembled in a wicker chair on deck. "My poor mademoiselle," he said gently, "you were close to M. Gardiner, perhaps?" Her large eyes, so bold and dense, now brimmed. He counseled father on acquisitions. A year ago they quarreled over the Cezanne's price. Papa paid anyway. But Felix believed the painting would never stay quiet, that it would bring trouble. She pressed a fist to her mouth. "I heard him say last night that Merrick's League held proof of forced sale." Poirot nodded. "And your father's reaction?" "Dismissive. He called Felix an alarmist." Next, Poirot joined Professor Trent and Leonora in the lounge. The academic perched like a heron, tapping long fingers upon a matchbox. "Your catalogue, Professor," Poirot requested. Trent surrendered it reluctantly. Marginalia crowded the margins, dates, valuations, cryptic arrows. Poirot indicated a series of underlinings beside the Cezanne entry, source uncertain, signature restoration suspect. "You harbor doubts, perhaps?" Trent cleared his throat. "Pure scholarly caution. Provenance is cloudy. One must annotate." Leonora spoke, low. "Uncle feared lawsuit might expose misattribution, ruin Sir Hugo. But he also feared losing grant money if he refused Lady Constance's invitation." As Poirot digested that, Merrick the solicitor approached, pale gaunt cheeks flushed with heat. "M. Poirot, an outrage. My client files will confirm the Stillman family's prior ownership. Gardiner promised to testify, now he's silenced." Poirot raised a hand. Comment, "Promised when?" "Last night after supper. We argued on the starboard deck. He admitted guilt over facilitating the 1920 auction. This morning we were to draft an affidavit. Did anyone overhear?" Father Keane, passing, answered unexpectedly. "I overheard enough." Felix spoke of conscience. "I counseled him to act justly. Now, God rest him, it is too late." Poirot bowed his head. "Merci, Father." By luncheon time, the river police had boarded at Henley. The day grew stifling, tension thickened the air. Captain Wyndham confined passengers to public spaces pending questioning. Poirot and I took a table in the now silent dining salon. My friend ate nothing. Instead, he polished an apple to a mirror's sheen, then set it untouched. "Hastings," he said, "observed 3 facts. First, the room was locked, yet the killer entered and left. Therefore disguise, perhaps he was admitted willingly, or already hidden. Second, the handkerchief with the black beetle. A signature, but whose? Not Sir Hugo's walrus, nor Trent's dried seaweed, nor Bligh's cowboy linen. I saw only one person last night wearing such embroidery." I racked memory vainly. Poirot continued, "Third, the position of the body, face angled toward the case, yet lying 10 feet distant, beside a fallen torch. And look, mon ami, Gardiner's shoes bear faint imprint of grease. The guard's shoes, likewise, from the engine deck oil. I suspect Gardiner fetched one guard for some comparison, then dismissed him. The guard left, Gardiner began examination, the killer struck afterwards. I mused. Yet why leave the picture untouched? Because, Hastings, something else was removed." He produced from his pocket a small rectangle of stiff parchment. "I found this wedged in the crack beneath the baseboard. It is the label describing the Cezanne's provenance, torn from its mount. The thief stole evidence, not art." I whistled. "Then the murder was to conceal title fraud. Perhaps, or perhaps the title is legitimate and someone means to frame Sir Hugo. For the moment, we will watch. The murderer grows desperate, he will err." At sunset, we anchored near Abingdon. Police launches buzzed like hornets, but Poirot requested private access to Gardiner's cabin. Detective Inspector Reeves, stout, red-haired, skeptical of civilians, reluctantly agreed. Gardiner's berth proved immaculate. A small writing desk contained 2 fountain pens, a bottle of purple ink, and a sheaf of notepaper headed Silver Swan Cruise. Upon that paper 4 words appeared in spidery hand: Scarab follows silent foot. Poirot's brows leapt. Scaraby, oui, the beetle again. And silent foot, pied Mewit. Is that not how monks glide in cloisters? He turned. Father Keen. Interesting. Yet behind the notepaper lay something more striking, a ticket stub to the Royal Academy War Relief Exhibition dated 1919, with a penciled circle around the name Noah Bly, lecturer. Now it was my turn to exclaim. Bly lectured on Mesopotamian seals that year. But what links him to a French still life? Poirot tucked the stub away. Curiosity, Hastings, leads to the strangest of crossroads. Night settled sultry and moonless. The captain's dining privileges resumed, but appetite had fled most tables. I spotted Leonora slipping through a rear hatch. Impulsively I followed. On the dark upper deck she paused at the rail, tears on her cheeks. Miss Trent, may I help? She startled. Oh, Captain Hastings. I came for air. The river's so still it feels wrong. She revealed, haltingly, that Gardiner had confided yesterday afternoon he possessed a letter proving Sir Hugo purchased the Saison after knowing of its forced sale. He intended to confront Sir Hugo privately this morning. Uncle said it was dangerous nonsense. Leonora sobbed. Now Felix is dead. I comforted her awkwardly, then returned below in search of Poirot. Voices reached me from the reading lounge, Colonel Darnley haranguing Bly. Dashed shabby trick, sir, pilfering relics under guise of scholarship. Bly's reply was controlled, accented by Midwest vowels. Colonel, in my country we believe a man innocent until proven otherwise. Now step aside. I peered. Bly's right hand held a small leather valise. Darnley clutched his arm. In the scuffle, the bag burst open. Papers spilled, maps, photographs of clay tablets, and a velvet pouch from which rolled a blue-green scarab ornament, its wing cases inlaid with gold. The room fell silent. Bly knelt, retrieved it, faced Poirot, who had appeared behind me. I bought this in Cairo last year, said Bly evenly. It belonged to a soldier of the 10th Hussars, Captain Arkwright, who died in 17. A harmless souvenir. Poirot lifted the amulet delicately. Tiny onyx beetle, black against turquoise. Charming, he murmured. A motif, repeated. Lady Constance stormed in, demanded order, threatened the colonel with confinement to quarters. Darnley subsided, mustache quivering. The guests dispersed. Poirot drew me aside. Hastings, begin a list, every person in whose possession the scarab symbol appears, handkerchief, amulet, stationery. We pursue not the beetle, but the idea of the beetle. We reached our cabins near midnight. As I opened my door, I noticed a faint scraping within Poirot's room. He gestured silence, produced an electric torch. We entered together, and found the place ransacked. Drawers pulled, clothes flung, but singularly, Poirot's attaché lay slit open, its contents strewn save one. My notebook, Poirot said softly. The observations of the day have gone. Outside in the passage a soft footfall retreated, then the echo of a door shutting. Poirot did not pursue. Instead he looked at me, gaze bright with the hunter's light. Main tenant, mon ami, the murderer shows his colors. Tomorrow, by the grace of those little gray cells, we shall pluck him from the shadows. A gray dawn found the river blank and motionless beneath low clouds, as though nature herself were withholding breath while the drama aboard the Silver Swan unfolded. I slept little, images of Gardiner's vacant stare tormented my half-dreams. When I tapped at Poirot's door at 7 he emerged already immaculate, mustaches trained to martial symmetry, yet there lingered an uncharacteristic tightness at the corners of his eyes. My friend, he said softly, we breakfast quickly, then summoned every passenger to the forward lounge. It is time to restore order, and my stolen notebook. Lady Constance, though haggard, lent her authority gladly. Steward Judkins laid out coffee and rolls. Captain Wyndham stationed 2 brawny sailors at the door. 26 guests filed in, wary, whispering. Poirot took a small dais and addressed them in measured tones. Mesdames et messieurs, you know that one of our company was murdered and that my private notes, perhaps containing a clue, were stolen last night. To continue so, in fear and suspicion, would be insupportable. Therefore, each of you will permit a swift search of cabins while you remain here under the pleasant protection of Colonel Darnley and Père Keane. An immediate hubbub erupted. Sir Hugo thundered protest, Iris turned white, Merrick demanded a solicitor. Yet Poirot's calm firmness prevailed. He beckoned me, Leonora Trent, whom he declared reliable, and Inspector Reeves to accompany him deck to deck. We began with Bligh's spacious single at the stern. Papers on cuneiform tablets, a stack of National Geographic, a locked trunk. Bligh provided the key without comment. Inside lay only Desert Kit, but wedged behind the lining Poirot found a slim roll of photographic negatives and a portable enlarging loupe. He examined one frame against the porthole light, an image of the Cezanne still life, shot from an oblique angle that captured a hairfine abrasion in the lower left. Voila, murmured Poirot, a detail invisible to the casual eye. Bligh shrugged. I collect technical anomalies, bad habit. We proceeded to the Belfort's adjoining suites. Iris's wardrobe exuded flawless order, gowns spaced by tissue, scent of verbena. No notebook. In Sir Hugo's compartment we discovered 2 empty champagne bottles, a travel humidor, and, in the wardrobe corner, a thin sable paintbrush smeared with what looked remarkably like varnish. Touch-up work, what? Reeves grunted. Sir Hugo bristled. Brush belongs to Iris, some lady nonsense. She paints watercolors, Iris said coldly. That brush is not mine. Sir Hugo's face colored, but before he spoke Poirot's gaze snagged upon the cane propped by the bed. With permission, begrudged, he twisted the gold head. The hollow shaft produced not a canvas but a mahogany stopper and faint waft of brandy. A flask, eh bien, Poirot observed, replacing it. Sir Hugo snatched the cane, muttering. Professor Trent's cabin resembled a cartographer's drawer spilled by earthquake, notes, reference volumes, 2 magnifiers, and a portable microscope. On the desk lay a half-finished letter addressed to the Times, protesting government cuts to museum funding. Leonora, cheeks pink with embarrassment, helped sift papers. Beneath a stack of Burlington magazine issues Poirot found Father Keane's calling card marked with a beetle emblem identical to that upon the handkerchief. The priest accepted the revelation gravely when shown. My order uses the scarab as symbol of resurrection. I gave cards to several passengers in hope of donations for our mission school. Several? Poirot queried. To Mr. Gardiner, Miss Lyle, and yes, Mr. Bligh, who took one but said he was no Catholic. Miss Lyle flushed. I tucked mine in my notebook, which is safe in my bag. Inspector Reeves finished searching Merrick's quarters next, bundles of legal briefs bound with green ribbon, a worn prayer book, and receipts for the Restitution League. Nothing resembling Poirot's notebook. In Colonel Darnley's cabin a locked attaché contained only cigar vouchers and stiff photographs of Indian regiments. Mrs. Darnley's valise yielded sachets of lavender and a bottle of chloral mixture, for nerves, she whispered. Not until the final berth did we strike gold, or something near it. The cabin assigned to Father Keane displayed austere neatness, but behind a folded surplice at the foot of his bunk lay a slender booklet bound in red morocco, observations, H.P. in Poirot's tidy hand. Reeves turned an accusing eye. The priest, however, neither paled nor protested. I discovered that under my cabin door before dawn, he said calmly. I intended to deliver it at once, but the summons to the lounge intervened. Poirot opened the notebook. 3 pages had been torn. The rest lay undisturbed, including a diagram of the exhibition salon and a list of 15 beetle motifs, tallied beside guest names. He bowed to Father Keane. Merci, mon père. Your honesty is noted. May I retain this? Of course, though I beg you to know I would never withhold evidence. Poirot closed the book. Someone wished to erase 3 matters only, they will betray themselves by that choice. Back in the lounge, passengers endured tension like captives in a besieged fort. Colonel smoldered, Iris paced, Bligh read Marcus Aurelius with outward serenity. Poirot returned notebook in pocket, announced no weapon found but appealed for candor. If anyone still possesses a handkerchief bearing the scarab, produce it. No one moved. Lady Constance dismissed the meeting with relief. Poirot signaled me to promenade deck. Note, Hastings, Bligh's negatives prove he captured a flaw in the Saison. If he wished to expose forged restoration, that could threaten Sir Hugo's reputation. Yet our thief removed only pages on which I analyzed Bligh's lecture notes and Father Keen's timetable. A curious pairing. So the priest is implicated? Or someone wishes us to think so? Poirot twirled a mustache tip. The mind that plants clues twice over often grows overconfident. We had scarcely spoken when Leonora Trent hurried up, breathless. Poirot, quick. Uncle has collapsed in the library. We found Professor Trent slumped beside a mahogany bookcase, spectacles askew, pulse rapid. Dr. Sanders, one of the guests, inspected him, declared a mild heart seizure, demanded rest. As Leonora guided her uncle away, Poirot retrieved from the carpet a matchbox, the same he had earlier seen Trent tapping. The scarab emblem glimmered on its lid. He pocketed it. The second evening, Lady Constance decreed the art salon remain sealed, and guests dined on deck under Chinese lanterns. Conversation fluttered around everyday banalities, but suspicion crackled beneath. Father Keen blessed the meal. I noticed Iris scowl at the priest. Across the table Sir Hugo drank heavily, lampooning Merrick's cause. Bligh listened, eyes half closed, amusement or calculation impossible to decide. After pudding, music restarted. Iris, pale but determined, danced with Fordham. Sir Hugo vanished below, brandy glass in hand. I trailed Bligh, who strolled aft. He lit a pipe and stared across the dark water. "Captain," he said quietly, "you shadow me." "Professional instinct," I replied. He laughed. "Ever play chess, Hastings? The trick is seeing the board from your opponent's seat." He tapped Ash. "Tell your Belgian friend from me, the beetle isn't always evil. In Egypt it rolls dung toward the sunrise, renewal, not decay." With that cryptic remark he excused himself. Moments later a muffled cry echoed from lower deck. I sprinted down companion stairs, nearly colliding with Leonora. She pointed at a half-open service corridor. Inside, beside humming dynamos, Iris Belfort knelt over her father, who sprawled unconscious, temple bruised, cane lying yards away. A small canister, cap unscrewed, rolled underfoot, giving off chloroform fumes. Lady Constance arrived, shrieked orders, deckhands carried Sir Hugo to infirmary. Iris shook violently. "I came to fetch him for the cotillion. I found this." Poirot appeared, his nostrils pinched at the odor. "Chloroform, yes." He examined the canister, property stamp of Euston Dental Supply. "How entered the ship, I wonder?" He lifted the cane. Its stopper removed, interior now empty. "The hollowness once housed liquor," I reminded him. "Or documents," Poirot corrected. We escorted Iris to her cabin. On her dressing table lay a single scarab handkerchief, edges damp. She stared. "That is not mine." Poirot touched her shoulder. "Courage, mademoiselle. Things grow clearer." Midnight. Professor Trent rested, Sir Hugo revived enough to bellow for whiskey, Captain Wyndham paced wheelhouse like a caged bear. Inspector Reeves consented to extra constables at Oxford next noon. I found Poirot alone in the deserted smoking room, arranging 12 matchsticks on a table. Each stick, Hastings, is a fact, place them wrongly and they appear mere disorder. He repositioned 2. Now the pattern forms. He leaned back. "Listen carefully. The motive is not theft of art alone, it is the theft of truth. Someone attempts to erase evidence that the Saison sale was forced. Three persons stand to suffer if restitution succeeds: Sir Hugo, naturally, Professor Trent, whose academic endorsements enhance his reputation, and Lady Constance, her cruise's prestige. But Lady Constance couldn't have struck Gardiner. She hosted the event. Precisely, she could not leave her table the hour he died. Sir Hugo was drinking on deck, Iris and Leonora danced, Merrick, Father Keane, Bligh, all accounted for within minutes of 3. Poirot tapped a matchstick. Yet the locked room conundrum tells us the murderer could have planted a device earlier, a timed mechanism. I started. The fallen torch. An electric torch modified to emit chloroform vapor when switched. Gardiner handled it, and succumbed. The head wound? Caused when he collapsed upon the floor edge, the killer later shattered a wine bottle to mimic blunt assault. Then who planted it? Someone with chemical knowledge, access to dentistry supplies, and freedom to wander, Mrs. Darnley, whose chloral we found, but I discount her. Trent, collegiate labs. Bligh, field archaeologist. Or Iris, trained at Slade before war. He swept sticks aside. Yet motive again, Gardiner threatened to reveal Sir Hugo's guilt. Only one person loves Sir Hugo enough to silence accuser while hoping to spare father prison, Iris. I protested. But she found her father assaulted. Which gives her an alibi and pathos. Mark, Sir Hugo's cane now empty, what if evidence once hidden there was removed by Iris this afternoon? She confronted him, demanded truth, he refused, she stunned him with his own chloroform flask. A daughter both protective and furious. He sighed. But I warn you, Hastings, I may be wrong. There is another angle. Professor Trent's drawings suggest a forgery. If he altered the painting, exposure means disgrace. He collapses conveniently today. Self-induced attack? We were interrupted by Miss Lyle, face ashen. Poirot, Father Keane asks you to the chapel. He says he has found something. We hurried below. The ship's tiny chapel gleamed with brass candlesticks. On the altar lay a sealed envelope. The priest waited, eyes sorrowful. I discovered this in the confessional, anonymously, he murmured. Poirot slit the flap. Inside was a single photographic print, the Cezanne under ultraviolet light, revealing a large scarab watermark scored beneath the paint, with words, "Justice rolls ever on." Symbolism upon symbolism, Father Keane whispered. Poirot pocketed the print. My thanks, mon père. Outside he said, now I understand. The scarab is both stamp of guilt and threat of revelation. Our criminal is playing a relentless game, rolling evidence like the dumb ball, inch by inch, toward daylight. Just before 2 a.m. the fog thickened. I urged Poirot to rest. He insisted on one more errand, to the locked salon, where guards drowsed over coffee. He examined the case with a penlight, tapped the glass, nodded. Tomorrow, Hastings, if I request the Cezanne be uncrated, do not be surprised. He retired. I drifted to my cabin and slept at last. I awoke to shouts. Morning sun streamed. Deckhands clustered amidships, pointing aloft. A rope ladder dangled from the top rail, its end dripping water. Inspector Reeves stormed down gangway, the Belfort girl, missing. Cabin undisturbed, bed unslept. Ladder suggests she left before dawn. Poirot arrived, face grave. Then the plot accelerates grotesquely. A search of riverbank proved futile. Captain Wyndham anchored near Newnham, police scoured woods. Noon struck. Reeves prepared arrest warrants for Bligh and Trent on suspicion of abduction, but Poirot begged 1 hour's grace. The inspector, reluctantly mindful of Poirot's fame, agreed. Poirot convened all aboard in the exhibition saloon, guards, crew, guests. Lady Constance stood rigid, Sir Hugo, swathed in bandage, growled, Leonora clutched her uncle's sleeve, Bligh fingered notebook, Merrick mouthed prayers. Silence vibrated. Poirot spoke. We have endured theft, murder, assault, now disappearance. The time has come to remove the mask. Within this case, he laid hand on the Cezanne's glass, lies a painting doubly false. First, a canvas obtained by coercion. Second, a surface repainted to conceal the scarab watermark, symbol of that injustice. Last night, someone fearful of discovery substituted a forgery. Gasps. Trent staggered. Poirot signaled guards. They opened the case, lifted the frame. Beneath the paint a subtle crack revealed new varnish. Trent groaned. Who dares? Poirot's finger traced faint brushstrokes. The forger used fresh varnish containing Damar resin, Professor, consistent with your studio formula. He turned. But the substitution demanded strength and secrecy. Iris Belfort disappeared because she learned the truth. She is imprisoned, alive, somewhere aboard. He faced Father Keane. You, mon père, nowhere. The confessional door in the chapel conceals a secondary storage locker used for life jackets. Its beam, when latched externally, bars escape. The scarab print you found was planted to draw me, but not yet, to her rescue. The priest's steady facade crumbled. For the love of God, I never meant harm. Iris discovered her father's shame, begged me to hide the forged picture until London solicitors arrived, proof enough to force restitution. I locked her to protect her from Sir Hugo's anger, she insisted. But when Bligh disturbed me at 3, Iris feared detection and tried to flee by ladder. She slipped, fell into river. I dived but lost her in fog. Tears cut channels down his cheeks. I failed her. Panic erupted, but even as shouts rang, a small figure, soaked, barefoot, entered behind guardsman Owen, Iris herself, pale yet upright. Father Keane speaks true. I swam to bank, hid till dawn. I'm not hurt. Sir Hugo lurched, embraced her, then recoiled at her cold eyes. Inspector Reeves took Father Keane into custody for false imprisonment. Poirot requested privacy for final clarifications. Reeves consented grudgingly. Poirot turned to the company. The priest was instrument, not architect. The mastermind forged, deceived, and killed to bury the scarab watermark. Only one possessed scientific skill to revarnish, motive to protect reputation, and access to chloroform from medical departments, Professor Trent. Leonora gasped. Trent paled, wavered, clutched chest. No, heart, he collapsed. Dr. Sanders pronounced cardiac arrest. Leonora sobbed. Poirot sighed. His conscience took cruel revenge. I murmured, but who struck Gardner? Trent is frail. Ah, Hastings, we must separate instigator from instrument. Gardner threatened exposure. Trent persuaded loyal niece to protect him. Leonora borrowed priest's scarab motif, sedated Gardner with the modified torch concealed earlier by her uncle, then staged fake assault. Last night she stole my notebook wanting to know how close I came. Iris saw her returning. Confrontation ensued, hence ladder escape. Leonora stared, stricken. I only wished to save Uncle. He lived for art, scandal would kill him. She collapsed anew. Reeves led her and Sir Hugo away. The river rolled on, indifferent. Whitehaven Mansions, a week later. Poirot and I sat by the fire. Headlines trumpeted Thames steamer mystery solved, Professor's deathbed confession. Sir Hugo donated the Cezanne, authentic under old varnish, to the National Gallery, restitution claim advanced unopposed. Iris served as trustee. Leonora, sentenced to 5 years, would teach art in prison workshops. I laid newspaper aside. A tangled web, Poirot. He smiled sadly. Human hearts weave webs more tangled than any spider. Yet in the end, truth glitters like morning dew, and those little gray cells, they see it. Within a fortnight of our return to London, life seemed to have resumed its customary, comfortable hum. The newspapers, after their parade of banner headlines, priest jailed, art heiress vindicated, river steamer drama ends in tragedy, had grown bored, turning instead to political rumblings in the Near East and the latest divorce of a film star. I attended to humdrum regimental business, dined twice with my fiancée Dulcie Duveen, and considered the affair closed. Poirot, however, paced his pristine apartment like a panther in a too-small cage. When I remarked upon his restlessness, he lifted one eyebrow and murmured that the affair was tidy in form, but untidy in essence, a pronouncement whose meaning I failed to penetrate. It was not until the morning of July 3rd that I grasped his concern. A discreet double knock came at the door. Georges, Poirot's valet, ushered in William Merrick, the thin, earnest solicitor of the Silesian Restitution League. His usually prim collar was wilted, his eyes, behind pince-nez, shimmered with sleepless agitation. "M. Poirot, forgive this intrusion," he began, voice quavering. "It is about the saison, about Iris Belfort in particular." I fetched coffee. Merrick, warming his hands on the cup, related that Lady Constance's insurance underwriters, spurred by the scandal, now demanded incontrovertible proof of title before they would approve further exhibition loans. Iris, eager to be candid, sent them copies of every document, yet one crucial certificate, signed by the Paris dealer Du Bois in 1919, had vanished. Worse, a man calling himself Pierre Lafosse had approached Iris 2 days ago, hinting he possessed the certificate and other damning letters, and naming a price of £20,000 for their return. "Blackmail," I exclaimed. "Precisement," Poirot nodded. "And now you fear violence?" Merrick hesitated. "We arranged to meet Lafosse last evening in a solicitor's office, neutral ground, yet he failed to appear. Instead, a messenger delivered this." He produced a small parcel, wrapping stained by Thames mud. Inside lay a white silk handkerchief embroidered with the familiar scarab, and, rolled within, a single sheet torn from what looked to be hotel stationery. It bore 3 words in crooked capitals: "Justice rises again." Poirot tapped forefinger to mustache. "You see, Hastings?" The web continues. He questioned Merrick closely, learning that Lafosse had telephoned from a public call-box near Charing Cross. The French accent was rough, perhaps assumed. Iris had not wished to involve the police for fear of further headlines. After Merrick had departed, I asked if Poirot suspected new danger. He replied by summoning Inspector Japp, and within an hour the good inspector arrived, smelling of bitter tobacco and bustle. The handkerchief, he agreed, was from the same batch Leonora had purchased at a Soho import house. Yet Leonora sat in Holloway, her embroidery kit had been seized. "Copycats, monsieur," Japp declared. "Some opportunist sees an emblem in the papers and thinks to milk it." Poirot shook his head. "Emblems are powerful, yes, but a copycat seldom grasps symbolism with such finesse. Justice rises again, that is the voice of conviction, not greed." He arranged a meeting with Iris that afternoon at Whitehaven. She arrived promptly, still pale but resolute, carrying a slim attaché and accompanied by Captain Wyndham, who had remained in her service as family steward. She spread copies of insurance letters, the threatened lawsuit, and her own anguished notes upon Poirot's table. "I cannot pay," she said. "If I do, I encourage the lie that father knew the painting was stolen. Yet if documents truly exist, Merrick says the League will sue regardless." Poirot questioned her about possible enemies. She named only Felix Gardiner, dead, and Professor Trent, dead. Father Keane, despite misguided imprisonment, had no reason to extort. I suggested Noah Bly. Iris admitted Bly had sent her wreath and condolence note, but that was all. Poirot sat silent, eyes half closed. Suddenly he asked, "Mademoiselle, during our voyage, you confided that Gardiner believed the painting would never stay quiet. Did he elaborate?" "Only that there were 2 sales, each a crime." I thought he meant the forced sale in Vienna and the Sotheby's auction. Poirot leaned forward. 2 crimes, yes. But perhaps different crimes. The next morning brought grim confirmation that our respite had ended. Inspector Japp telephoned. William Merrick had been found dead in his chambers at Lincoln's Inn, stabbed through the heart with an antique letter opener. No sign of forced entry, door locked from within, key in Merrick's pocket. On his blotter, written in the solicitor's own blood, was a single hieroglyphic scarab. Poirot and I hurried to the scene. The tiny office smelled of ink and dust. Papers lay scattered as though Merrick had searched desperately. The window, narrow and barred, overlooked a courtyard far below. Japp growled that another blasted locked room would finish his digestion. Poirot examined the letter opener, its handle a brass sphinx. He sniffed lightly at the blade. Oil of wintergreen, he murmured. Used often to mask sharper odors. He extracted a crumpled telegram from Merrick's wastebasket. Sent the previous night, it read, delivery guaranteed, midnight, Blackfriars Bridge, Almshouse Arch, Enield PL. Our Lafosse again, I said. Or one who pretends to be Lafosse, Poirot replied. Merrick kept the rendezvous, received nothing, returned disheartened, found office already invaded. How could intruder depart, leaving door bolted inside? Poirot pointed at Merrick's umbrella stand, empty. It rained hard at 11, yet Merrick's umbrella stands elsewhere, dripping. Therefore, he returned after the killer left, bolted the door himself, perhaps to study stolen papers, then was attacked by someone hidden inside, maybe behind that curtains. The killer exits through door after stabbing, leaving key on hook, loops a wire to pull bolt after closing. Elementary, mon ami. Jap chuckled. Elementary to you, maybe. Poirot indicated Merrick's scattered files. A folder titled Du Bois, Paris, 1919 lay open, 2 sheets missing. The killer sought a very specific document. That evening, a thick heat pressed London. I dined with Poirot at Simpson's, though neither of us tasted roast beef. He discoursed on beetles by candlelight. Egyptians revered the scarab as symbol of the sun god Khepri, rolling the disk of day across heaven, the motif of endless rebirth. Our criminal rolls gild before him, he said, warning those who profited, I bring your secret into light. We took a cab to Blackfriars Bridge. Beneath its sooty arches stood the derelict almshouse referenced in the telegram. Rat droppings, broken glass, smell of tidal mud. In a corner cell we found charred paper and an oil drum brazier. Poirot, using tweezers, rescued a fragment, lot 47, still life with pears, attribute says, before ash crumbled. Footsteps startled us. A figure emerged, coat collar up, hat brim low. Poirot stepped forward, the stranger bolted. I gave chase, but the man vanished into alleys of Upper Thames Street. Poirot retrieved a matchbox dropped in flight. Scarab motif, again. That is now the third, he said. Days bled into sultry evenings. Scotland Yard failed to identify Lafosse. Poirot dispatched telegrams to Paris dealers and Vienna archives. Answers trickled. Du Bois Gallery closed since 1925. Proprietor died in sanatorium. A clerk recalled a Viennese refugee, named Lowenstein, who claimed restitution but vanished. Then, one blazing afternoon, Captain Wyndham burst into Whitehaven with news: Iris Belfort had been kidnapped. Her maid returned from chemist to find Iris gone, a window forced, scarab drawn and lipstick upon vanity mirror. A note left on her escritoire: final sunrise, dawn, Kew Pagoda, alone. The Metropolitan Police sealed Belfort House, interviewed the household. Only one servant reported an unusual caller, Mr. Bly, that morning, bringing Iris a catalogue of Mesopotamian ceramics. Poirot rubbed temples. Noah Bly, again, drifting like the Nile flood into every crevice. Yet a blunt instrument, I think, not architect. Inspector Japp, stretched to snapping point, appointed 30 men to sweep Kew Gardens by 4 a.m., but Poirot insisted he and I should enter alone at first light, for the kidnapper desires intimate audience. At 5:30 dawn lingered peach-tinted over manicured lawns. Damp air smelled of jasmine and earth. We crossed dew-soaked grass toward the Chinese pagoda, its silhouette sharp against paling sky. At its base stood Father Keane, released on bail, eyes hollow, cassock mud-spattered. He held a revolver loosely, as though surprised to find it in his hand. I brought her, as commanded, he murmured. They threatened to expose my bishop's private letters. I swear, I never harmed her. She waits above. Poirot whispered that I fetched Japp's men, but, loath to leave him, I climbed behind the little Belgian. Circular stairs spiraled upward. Halfway, we heard sobbing. Iris, wrists bound, perched on a mid-level balcony, opposite her sat Noah Bly, likewise tied, mouth gagged. Between them ticked a small brass alarm clock wired to a kerosene lantern. A fuse trailed into its mechanism. At 6 minutes, the note warned, flame would ignite fuse, fire would engulf pagoda, purifying arts of greed and war. Scarab emblem signed the threat. Poirot knelt, steadied wiring, then produced nail scissors, snipped fuse. He freed Iris. Bly, eyes blazing, tore gag. I came to warn her. Priest lured me. Keene groaned. I am a pawn. I believed the documents would save souls. Where are those documents? Poirot demanded. Keene gestured to a leather satchel slung across Bly's shoulder. Inside we found original Du Bois receipt and 4 letters. One bore the crest of the War Office, signed Geoffrey Darnley. Content: order to seize private art collections in occupied Cologne, 1919, for compensation. Sir Hugo's purchase traced to Darnley's appropriation. Thus Colonel Darnley, Bulldog of Britannia, was primary looter. Gardiner learned truth. Darnley persuaded Trent to forge painting to hide telltale watermark, Leonora, and misguided devotion, killed. The colonel is missing, Poirot said grimly. He fled yesterday to Kent Cottage. At noon a Scotland Yard car raced us to Sevenoaks, where Darnley kept hunting lodge. Smoke drifted from chimney. In library paneled with antlers, we discovered the colonel scorched by self-inflicted shotgun wound. On desk lay confession. He had stolen dozens of artworks under commission cover, sold through Gardiner, forged by Trent, proceeds split. The Scarab campaign threatened exposure. He intended final blaze of honorable suicide. Yet not all art was destroyed. A false back to cupboard concealed crates of canvases, Manets, Renoirs, small almedema, plus Trent's chemicals and blanks. Poirot located one unframed panel, Our Saison, peeled of overpainting, watermark bright in ultraviolet torch. Justice rolled. Weeks later, in High Court, Iris Belfort and the Stillman heirs reached accord, Saison sold at auction, proceeds divided, portion endowed Art Rescue Fund. Leonora, counseled by Keene, pled guilty to manslaughter, sentence commuted to 3 years hospital service. Father Keene accepted suspension. He would rebuild mission with Iris's philanthropy. Bly returned to Nineveh Dig. I received jaunty postcard. Poirot, content, sat beside gasfire as autumn dusk colored the roofs. He fingered the brass scarab amulet, recovered from Darnley's coffin top. All along, he mused, the scarab signified both guilt and salvation. In rolling its burden, it lightened it. So too human conscience. Remember, Hastings, those who conceal truth roll a ball that grows heavier each step, until it crushes them. And the little gray cells? Them, my friend, they roll nothing, they examine, they illuminate. That is all. He smiled, folded hands, and, for the first time in months, allowed himself a contented sigh. In the quiet weeks that followed, the newspapers found new sensations, and yet the ramifications of the Thames steamer affair continued to ripple outward like the widening circles of a stone tossed upon water. Colonel Darnley's cache of looted pictures proved far larger than the paneled cupboard first revealed. Scotland Yard uncovered still more masterpieces hidden behind false walls in a Kentish oast house, and the ensuing catalogue sold at Christie's under the somber heading, Recovered Works, August Loot, Cologne 1919, proceeds to be held in trust pending restitution claims. Thus, in one dramatic afternoon, Lady Constance's vision of a fashionable river cruise had swollen into the most significant art title reckoning England had seen since the Peace Conference. Through it all, Hercule Poirot moved with delicate grace, neither boasting nor shrinking, content to sign affidavits and accept the thanks of public bodies, but I found myself perpetually summoned as a witness, and not merely to Gardiner's inquest or Leonora Trent's trial at the Old Bailey. Solicitors, curators, and insurers, each staking a fragment of truth, demanded my plain narrative of events. Day after day I repeated how Felix Gardiner, earnest man of commerce, had perished because he possessed the scruples a soldier had cast aside, how Leonora, bookish and shy, was coaxed into the role of assassin by the blind love a niece can bear her uncle, how Father Keene, yearning for moral revolution, became the voice of terror, yet never once lifted a hand to kill. Each time, the barrister for one faction or another pounced on some phrase, shaping it anew in the service of partial truth. I began to feel myself a marionette of competing memories. One drizzly Wednesday, I found Poirot in the alcove of the British Museum reading room, surrounded not by criminologists' journals, as I expected, but by folios on Egyptian iconography. The little Belgian looked up, eyes alight. Do you know, mon ami, that the scarab in hieratic lore signifies not only rebirth but also the secret labor of formation? The beetle, hidden within its ball, fashions life unseen until sunrise. I grunted that the courts preferred less poetic insects. But you miss it, he insisted. Our murderer adopted the scarab precisely because its labor is unseen. Colonel Darnley worked in darkness, first in Cologne cellars, later in suburban strongrooms, rolling stolen beauty toward the daylight of society as though nothing were amiss. At last he was crushed by the weight of that hidden toil. Consider also poor Leonora, her crime, the killing of Gardiner, she performed behind a locked door, trusting the torch to mask her involvement. All these actors rely on secrecy. Voila the moral, truth, like dawn, arrives inexorably. He closed the folio gently. And you, Hastings, you look oppressed. The witness stand does not suit the man of action, eh? I am weary of rehearsing the horror, I admitted. The Crown tore Leonora to ribbons, yet when sentencing day arrived the judge spoke of her genuine filial devotion and recommended medical supervision. It left the gallery in tears. Poirot nodded. Justice need not be cruel to be stern. He invited me to dine that night at the Savoy with Iris Belfort and Miss Phoebe Lyle, who, since her scoop on the steamer, had joined the Daily Gazette's foreign desk. The soft glitter of the Thames beyond the windows lent the occasion an air almost unreal, string music, silver domes lifted to reveal turbot and mousseline, the clink of crystal. Iris had abandoned black for a gown of peacock silk, the bruises left by ropes at her wrists had faded, though not yet the depth of her gaze. She thanked Poirot for retrieving the Dubois papers and told us that the Stillman heirs had accepted a mediated share of the sale price, an outcome of courtesy rather than compulsion, for the public now viewed her family's fortune with sympathetic interest. Captain Hastings, she said, leaning forward so that the candlelight wove amber through her dark hair, there is to be an exhibition at the Tate this winter, paintings repatriated. My father insisted his name appear among donors. He wishes to be present at the opening. Perhaps, when the time comes, you will escort Phoebe and me? Phoebe's cheeks colored delightfully. I stammered acceptance and saw Poirot smile behind his napkin. When the port arrived, Iris produced a folded letter. From Leonora, she explained. May I share a part? At our ascent, she read. I do not ask forgiveness, for I knew what I did when I struck him. Yet I truly believed, my uncle's heart would stop if Sir Hugo's crime were made public. He was so frail and so vain. And I believed Colonel Darnley when he swore Gardiner would denounce the collection, ruin father and daughter alike. Now uncle rests under marble, but the truth survives him, and I see the irony. I killed to save art for my land, but in so doing I almost plunged English art into scandal deep as any trench of Flanders. Iris folded the page carefully. The chaplain says she teaches drawing 3 mornings a week, and the governor calls her sketches remarkably serene. Poirot lifted his glass. To redemption, mademoiselle. That toast marked for me the true conclusion of our adventure. Yet one coda remained, and it came on a crisp October dawn, 6 months to the day since Gardiner's death. Poirot summoned me to Whitehaven Mansions with the promise of un petite surprise. I arrived to find Georges arranging valises in the hallway and Poirot himself wearing tweed more suitable to the moor than the boulevard. On the escritoire lay 2 first-class tickets to Truro. We travel to Cornwall, he announced. There, in the manner of Lord Street Austell, hang 2 canvases looted in 1919 and sold unquietly by Darnley's cousin. Our task, to persuade his lordship to relinquish them to rightful heirs, lest the newspapers enjoy another scandal. I opened my mouth to protest the task beyond a private detective's remit. Poirot raised a finger. Consider, Hastings, the law may secure a title, yet moral possession requires persuasion. We shall bring persuasion, in the form of eloquence, a sealed court order, and, if need be, the notebook. The notebook? He patted his breast pocket. Those 3 missing pages? They were never destroyed. I found them in the chaplain's Bible when Iris showed me Leonora's letter. A neat hiding place, page edges dyed red like the edges of the good book. They record Colonel Darnley's first boast to Trent, the hour he revealed he could substitute a forgery. Enough to convince any nobleman that silence is costlier than surrender. And so, once more, the quest for restitution drew us from comfortable London into the wild corners where war's debris still lay. We took the Great Western Express through golden valleys, autumn sunlight through long spears across harvested fields. Poirot, settled with a small traveling atlas, plotted the distribution of other recovered paintings now awaiting claimants, one to be shipped to Prague, another destined for a museum in Krakow, a third gifted anonymously to the Musée d'Orsay. He worked with quiet satisfaction, and I realized that for him the case was never merely a puzzle of who struck down whom, but a moral geometry, angles of guilt, vectors of reparation, lines that must be straightened if the world were to keep from grotesque distortion. At Truro we were met by a bent gardener with a dogcart, and we rattled off toward granite cliffs. I confess my soldier's shoulders stiffened at the raw Atlantic view, its wind whipping white horses against black rock. In my pocket I carried letters from Iris and Phoebe, promising to join us after the winter show, Dulcie sent violets wrapped in tissue. And as the carriage creaked uphill to St. Austell's towering facade, I thought how curious it was that the long fingers of Professor Trent's forgery, Colonel Darnley's greed, and Leonora's misdirected loyalty had reached even this far coast. But I had also the comforting impression that Poirot, like the scarab of his studies, was methodically rolling the ball of truth until dawn glittered upon it. And I, Hastings, retired captain, sometime chronicler, and forever admirer of those miraculous little gray cells, felt honored, yes, honored indeed, to shoulder my modest corner of that burden beside him. The road that leads from Truro to Lord St. Austell's estate twists like a serpent between hedgerows already bronzed by autumn saltwind. Our conveyance, a flyspeck dog-cart borrowed, so the gardener told us, from the village vicar, creaked and wheezed with every gradient, yet Poirot appeared in raptures, head tilted to regard stone stiles, lichen-clad walls, hedges bursting with blackthorn and sloe. When he broke his reverie, it was to ask the gardener a series of apparently innocent questions about tides, coastal footpaths, distances to Penzance, and whether smugglers' caves still threaded the cliffs. The old fellow, pleased by such interest, offered a string of legends, hidden passages from manor cellars to the shore, phantom lights, even talk of Napoleonic contraband still buried beneath dunes. I laughed. Surely, Poirot, you've distracted the man merely to indulge the romantic in you. On the contrary, he replied, smoothing his lap blanket. One must discover how far temptation may stretch, mon ami. Paintings are light objects, easily ferried by a rowboat to a neutral trawler on a moonless night. A maze of caves? An obliging tide? All these become accomplices to our thief. The manor appeared at last, a severe granite facade bristling with castellated parapets, 3 tall pines leaning as though to gossip over the slate roof. Lord St. Austell, a gaunt aristocrat with smoker's stoop and 2 blue eyes, received us in a drawing-room of faded splendor. Panels of damask once crimson had paled to rose, a hooded fire snapped politely, providing small apology for drafts swirling up from the flagged floor. Poirot bowed. "My lord, you know why we come." St. Austell inhaled with what seemed both weariness and resolve. "I know. You would have me surrender the Guillemot and the Renoir." He gestured vaguely at the east wall, where 2 gilt frames hung in steadied symmetry above a harpsichord. "My father bought those in 1921 from Colonel Darnley." There was no pall of illegality then, only the thrill of French color to brighten Cornish granite. Poirot advanced to the paintings. I followed, admiring the Renoir, a riverbank dance, ladies in white muslin swirling beneath plane trees, and its partner, Guillemot's incandescent purple stream beneath an orange sky. They glowed even in the room's chill light. If they are looted, St. Austell continued, it is through no intention of mine. Yet may I not claim a certain innocence of possession? They have hung here for a decade, bringing simple pleasure. Innocence of mind, perhaps, said Poirot gently. Innocence of title, alas, ceases the moment knowledge enters. And now you possess knowledge, my lord. St. Austell's mouth turned downward. So I must relinquish them to some Prague bank clerk who will mothball them out of sight. Poirot spread his hands. The rightful owners live, one in Prague, one in Krakow. War robbed them twice, first of family, then of beauty. Let England not rob them a third time with indifference. The peer's shoulders slumped. He moved to the harpsichord as though seeking accompaniment for his thoughts, fingers brushing yellowed keys. You fight with truth and melody, monsieur. Very well. The pictures shall go. I felt relief wash through the room like a sudden spring thaw. Yet Poirot's gaze lingered upon St. Austell's hands. You play, my lord? Badly. But my late wife adored the instrument. He pressed a minor chord, let it fade. She died last year. These pictures were her bright companions in illness. Poirot bowed head. Then you sacrifice in her honor, it is fitting. Arrangements were set. 2 crates from Christie's would arrive on the morrow, a courier from the Foreign Office would escort them to London, thence Zurich, thence Continental Rail. St. Austell signed forms without complaint, though I saw his pen hesitate before each flourish. Business concluded, we were offered a late luncheon of potted crab and mead. Conversation turned, at Poirot's prompting, to local antiquities. The peer remarked that Roman coins turned up after every storm, smugglers' tunnels indeed riddled the cliffs. The darkest led behind his wine cellar, long since bricked, though children claimed to hear gold voices echoing through its seams. If the weather clears, I will show you, monsieur. Poirot agreed with enthusiasm. But afternoon sky, fickle, blackened instead, a gale flung sleet against lancet windows, the sea's roar deepened to cannonading. We retired early to guest chambers high in the west wing, each with single mullioned aperture overlooking foam-flung rocks. Midnight I woke to scratching at shutters. I rose, shivering. Through warped glass I glimpsed lantern glow bobbing upon the lawless terrace below. 2 figures struggled beside a bundled object. Great Scott! I cried, and dashed into corridor, rousing Poirot. He emerged instantly, slippers, mustache immaculate. Together we hurried down stone staircases, through pantry, into howling dark. Wind shredded our oil lamps, we clutched hat brims. On the terrace, lantern guttered unattended. Snow pellets needled our cheeks. The bundled object proved empty canvas, sacking. No sign of intruders but for wet boot prints leading toward a low arch and ivy-hung wall. Poirot stooped. Observe, Hastings. 2 sets prints, one heavy, iron-hobbed, one lighter, perhaps lady's galoche. He touched sacking, faint turpentine scent. Our Renoir or Guillemot just lay inside. We followed prints through arch to an open door street Austell had earlier called the Orangery, an abandoned glasshouse whose panes rattled like tambourines. Inside, footprints crisscrossed. At far end yawned a black aperture, the brick smuggler's passage now forced open, bricks scattered. We exchanged glances. The thieves had foreknowledge, I said. They returned for their canvas after weather offered cover. Poirot's eyes flashed. And perhaps still within tunnel. Come, swiftly, but quietly. We entered single file. Passage narrowed into damp claustrophobic burrow. My torch caught glistening trickles down chalk walls. After 30 paces the air smelled briny. Suddenly ahead, faint glow. We pressed on and emerged into limestone grotto whose arched exit framed the savage bay. There, on shingle wet with spume, 2 figures loaded crates into a beach dinghy, one in oilskin coat, the other with scarf about hair, Lady Constance Bream. I gasped. Poirot stepped forward, voice ringing above surf. Arates. You play the smuggler, madam, and you, Captain Wyndham. The taller figure whirled. Rain had dropped, Wyndham's austere features. He produced revolver, but wind-wrenched aim. Poirot advanced, calm as a priest, palms out. Enough. You cannot launch, the tide recedes, the surf corrupts. See, already your boat grates rocks. Lady Constance's face appeared spectral in beam of my torch, eyes frantic, rouge streaked by rain. He left me ruined, she cried above gale. Those paintings guaranteed my loans. When Colonel died, insurers withdrew. To keep my cruise line afloat I needed capital, fast. Wyndham and I devised this: steal, claim burglary, sell overseas. Wyndham snarled. We had it perfect until you snatched them early. So we doubled back for them tonight. I circled toward Dinghy's hawser. Wyndham fired, shot echoing cliffs, but Poirot flung handful of pebbles in his eyes. I lunged, knocked revolver aside. Struggle brief, he slipped, fell to knees, winded. Lady Constance collapsed sobbing. By dawn, constables from Truro escorted prisoners. St. Austell, pale with shock yet oddly composed, thanked us. He had heard nothing, an old concussion left him near deaf to storm. He insisted we remain. That afternoon, sun returned, glittered on distant spray. Over tea, Poirot explained. I suspected Constance after she pressed Iris to display collection aboard Silver Swan. She speaks of philanthropy yet counts pennies behind lace. Her presence in Cornwall yesterday on business of the line was too neat. And Captain Wyndham, dismissed after Colonel's death, needed funds. How did you guess they would attempt theft during first storm? Because, Hastings, caves demand high tide to float a boat within. A squall would cloak sound, deter watchers, and supply them with darkness. Timing dictated by tides, and greed. St. Austell nodded, gaze distant. They risked these beauties, yet I almost lost them through my own hesitation. Monsieur, tomorrow the crates go to London as pledged, under your escort. 2 days later at Victoria Station we supervised loading of labeled trunks onto the boat train to Folkestone. Iris Belfort met us, accompanied by Phoebe, notebook ready. She shook Lord St. Austell's hand warmly, promising that gratitude and pride would be measureless. As whistle blew, Poirot turned to me, eyes gleaming. It is finished, mon ami. The beetle may rest, the ball of truth has reached the sun. I sighed, feeling at once weary and elated. And you, Poirot, will you rest? He smiled. Rest? But voyages of atonement never cease. Already the Muses Royaux of Belgium seek counsel on a Van Eyck. Come, Hastings. The world rolls onward, and we nous autres, we roll with it. We stepped aboard, valises in hand, as the train chuffed eastward under banners of pale autumn cloud, bearing art toward justice, and ourselves into yet another adventure whose outline, though still dim, already quickened the little gray cells of my incomparable friend. The boat train rattled across Kent beneath a ceiling of dove-gray cloud, its windows misted by sea spray when we burst onto the pier at Folkestone. I sat opposite Poirot in the first-class compartment, watching him polish a silver pencil cap with his handkerchief before jotting neat columns of figures. He noticed my curiosity and explained that he was allocating the Guillemot and Renoir's insurance share into separate trust lines, one destined for a Prague hospice, the other for the Krakow Academy that had once purchased pigments from the looted family's shop. He possessed, it seemed, a cartographer's mind for restitution, every claim a river, every settlement a tributary. On the cross-channel steamer Princess Elizabeth, the wind freshened, gulls knifed the air. Phoebe Lyle, eager for color, perched at the rail sketching deck chairs and charcoal outlines, while Iris Belfort stood near the prow, scarf billowing round her dark hair. I watched them both, my heart curiously light, until a steward's gong called us to luncheon below. An autumn dust draped Calais in lilac when we boarded the Belgian train. French compartment lamps glowed amber, curtains of wine-red brocade parted just enough for glimpses of harvested fields flicking by like an old newsreel. The heavy silence of foreign travel settled us all, save Poirot, who still hummed a fragment of Offenbach under his breath. I dozed, but woke with a jerk when the train braked hard outside Mons. Poirot's eyes were alert. Outside I saw figures hurrying along the ballast by torchlight, gendarmerie, jackets buttoned high. Our conductor soon obliged with news. A passenger in the forward sleeping coach, a Flemish dealer named De Ridder, had pulled the emergency cord, claiming a theft. Within minutes, Inspector Franz van Mierlo of the Brussels Brigade arrived to question Poirot. A small, hawk-nosed man with pince-nez, Van Mierlo spoke swift French. De Ridder, he said, was transporting a carved oak panel, early 15th century, which had vanished from its case during transit. Did Monsieur Poirot wish to examine the sealed carriage? We followed Van Mierlo past sleepy travelers. A guard unlocked De Ridder's cabin. Inside, a crushed velvet pouch lay open on the bunk. Beside it, an iron-strapped valise, its lock split by some narrow tool. De Ridder, a gray-haired chap with watery eyes, wrung his hands. Say impossible. I never left the room. Yet the train had never stopped between Lille and Mons save for routine signal checks. Poirot inspected the lock. A thin blade, perhaps a steel palette knife. He sniffed iron filings. No oil, work done swiftly. He lifted the pouch, releasing a faint scent of beeswax. An altarpiece fragment, yes? Why no rigid crate? I wish to keep it by me, de Ridder stammered. Its provenance, he broke off. Poirot's brows met. Its provenance is delicate? Perhaps a panel from Ghent, stolen in 34? De Ridder shrank. I purchased it legally from a French estate, documentation in order. Poirot laid hand on the valise. Nevertheless, the thief is someone who can vanish in a moving train. He glanced at Van Mierlo. Inspect the ventilators above each door, they are wide enough for a boy. Van Mierlo departed barking orders. Poirot studied a minute fleck of vermilion stuck to the velvet lining. Then he excused us. As we returned to our compartment, he whispered, "Observe, Hastings, one more art crime entangled in restitution. And note how it intersects our present purpose. The Van Eyck altarpiece also lost panels. Is it coincidence that the Royal Museums now request me?" Brussels greeted us with a dawn like hammered copper over the spires of St. Gudule. We installed ourselves at the Hotel Metropole, all Belle Époque marble and bronze palms, and after coffee Poirot and I taxied to the Musée Royal des Beaux-Arts. There we met Monsieur Adrien de Schepper, curator of Flemish primitives, tall, parchment-skinned, pince-nez thick as watch-glasses. He bowed. "Monsieur Poirot, we face a spectre, a newly discovered panel purporting to be part of Van Eyck's adoration of the mystic lamb. An anonymous agent has offered to sell it back, through de Ridder, on condition no gendarme meddle." Poirot nodded gravely. To demonstrate authenticity, the panel was placed in de Ridder's custody, yet stolen en route, ensuring panic. Thus the criminals hold both art and advantage. De Schepper led us through galleries echoing with footfalls to a conservation studio. On an easel rested the altarpiece's central panels. Technicians peeled facing boards, X-ray screens flickered ghostly bone-white under paint. De Schepper sighed. The Church of St. Bavon still mourns the men who died protecting these works in 40. If the missing just judge's panel resurfaces, it would be a miracle. Yet we cannot enrich thieves. Poirot inspected radiographs. Hastings observed spectral brushwork, foam on Mary's veil, as delicate as butterfly wings. He turned to de Schepper. "Monsieur, permit me to question de Ridder and to examine train manifests. Also, any restoration guilds recently dismissed employees?" De Schepper produced files. A name caught my eye, Franz Hoffmann, German restorer expelled for forging oak grain using beeswax. Poirot pocketed the sheet. We must visit Hoffmann. Our search led us next to Anderlecht, to a ramshackle maison garnie where Hoffmann lodged. A landlady in a knitted shawl pointed us to the attic. Finding door ajar, we entered. Hoffmann, bearded, paint-stained, sat at a bench applying bowl to a wood sliver. Beside him rested a casket remarkably like de Ridder's. He glanced up, eyes fierce. "You come for the judges?" "Too late." Poirot said softly, "I come for truth. Return the panel and earn leniency. Continue hiding and face ruin." Hoffmann laughed. "Leniency? For a German who saved Belgian soul when priests bartered it? I rescued that panel in 44. It belongs to art, not priests." He swung casket lid. Inside lay only blank oak. "Gone," he spat. "Stolen by a collaborator in Calais who promised safe sail. A certain Pierre Lafosse?" Poirot posed. Hoffmann narrowed eyes. "Lafosse? Non. He calls himself Loup-Scarabée." He rolled the judges away. Poirot and I exchanged glances. Back at the hotel, we found Iris distraught, Phoebe Lyle had vanished after receiving telegrams summoning her to a bombshell interview at the Hotel de Sablon. The desk clerk there denied seeing her. A bellboy, however, recalled a lady leaving with a man carrying a scarab-marked attaché. Poirot exhaled. Thus the scarab migrates to Belgium. Iris begged to join the search. Poirot agreed on condition she remain near de Shepherd. We three, Poirot, Iris, and I, motored to Scarbake rail freight yards, having learned Hoffman's casket traveled there. It was after midnight, yard shuddering with shunted wagons, when we located a lonely siding. There, under harsh arc light, stood a wooden crate. On its lid, drawn in tar, the scarab. Poirot prized plank with crowbar he'd borrowed. Within, swathed in felt, lay the missing panel. Phoebe lay too, alive but bound, gagged, eyes blazing courteous fury. We freed her. She whispered that her captor was a Belgian in priest's cassock. Father Keane, I exclaimed. Non, she corrected. Keane's habit, but different man, taller, scar on jaw. Poirot nodded grimly. Thus, an impersonator wearing what Keane's notoriety provides, fear. Gendarmes locked perimeter. Yet our false priest slipped net. He left only a calling card wedged in crate slat, lux in tenebris. We convened next day in de Shepherd's office, police, Iris, de Ridder, Van Mierlo, and Monsieur de Klerk, head of the Church Heritage Board. The panel, now safe in vault, awaited forensic confirmation. De Klerk insisted public thanksgiving, Van Mierlo wanted arrests. Poirot drew from pocket Hoffman's address book, obtained by warrant. One notation recurred, he turned to Iris. Your late cruise hostess, Lady Constance, her given names? Evangeline Lucille. And her cruise line, bankrupt since her arrest, yet its accounts list payments to a Brussels trust, Investissements. De Shepherd exclaimed. Then Lady Constance financed Hoffman? Poirot steepled fingers. Recall her remark, the cruise required a claw to lure patrons. What brighter lure than hint she could produce against missing treasure? She enticed de Ridder, built rumors. But arrest in Cornwall broke scheme, her accomplice here needed quick ransom to recoup losses. Thus Phoebe kidnapped, panel leveraged. De Ridder cried protest that he was tricked. Poirot faced him. You aided willingly until panic. But law will weigh your fear against greed. Van Mierlo wired Cornwall, Wyndham confessed Constance hired a Belgian friend to arrange shipment. The man, an ex-seminarian named Lucien de Vos, matched Phoebe's description, priestly height, jaw scar. Weeks later, de Vos was captured near Namur, attempting to board a barge for the Rhine. He confessed Lady Constance planned to auction the panel in Berlin, blaming a fictitious scarab fraternity. When she fell, he acted alone, embellishing symbol to cast blame on Keane legacy. Phoebe's article, Scarabs on the Lamb, How Poirot Recovered Van Eyck's Lost Judges, splashed across Fleet Street. The Belgian king awarded Poirot the Croix de Chevalier, though my friend chuckled that he preferred warm slippers. In Ghent on Christmas Eve we attended a special Vespers in St. Bavon Cathedral. The reunited panels glowed under soft lamplight. Iris, cheeks flushed, stood beside de Shepherd as bells tolled. Phoebe squeezed my hand, whispering she never imagined journalism would draw her into medieval mysteries. Poirot, hat clasped to chest, murmured, Justice, ma foi, may be slow, but she arrives in splendor. Returning by Channel Ferry the following day, we leaned at rails as gulls wheeled overhead. I mused, Poirot, the scarab thread led us from Oxford smoke to Cornish cliffs, to Belgian freight yards, yet who first chose that symbol? Was it Leonora, or Colonel Darnley? He smiled. No single author, Hastings. Symbols attract minds uneasily yoked by guilt. Like a flame attracting moths. Darnley used it privately, Leonora stole idea from priest's card, Lady Constance adopted it when others feared it. In the end, scarab became mirror reflecting each conscience. I breathed sea air. Will we write it, this saga? He patted my arm. That, my friend, is your métier. But remember, tell not merely of crime solved. Tell of paintings restored, fogs dispelled, hearts mended. A detective story must, at last, be a story of order returning. He turned to watch England's cliffs brighten in weak winter sun, the brim of his bowler casting sharp shadow across eyes alive with satisfied fire, as if already charting the next small victory of order over chaos in the endless, rolling work of those little gray cells. The December fog that mantles the estuary around Tilbury can feel, as Londoners will attest, like an emanation from some subterranean furnace, dense, strangely warm, and rank with river silt. When the ferry nosed alongside the landing stage, its siren bleeding 3 mournful blasts, the gray wall closed around us until even the flare from the customs lamps seemed begrimed. Poirot, ever sensitive to atmospheric discomforts, pulled his scarf higher, yet his eyes, sharp above the muffler, seemed to relish the very murk into which we disembarked. "Voila, Hastings, the stage resets itself," he observed as we waited for a porter. "London returns, and with it the shadow in which crime scuttles." "Surely," I said, "after Ghent, Cornwall, Brussels, and the rest, we are entitled to at least a fortnight of peace." I meant it half in jest, half pleadingly. I longed for Dulcie, for a crackling Yule log, any refuge from intrigue. Poirot merely smiled. "One may hope." "Mays," observed the gentleman who loiters by the telegraph booth. Through the haze I distinguished a wiry figure in a long overcoat, hat brim tugged low, glancing repeatedly at a slip of paper and then at passengers descending the gangway. Presently he spotted us and started forward with a determined air. "I fancy our interlude may be shorter than expected," Poirot murmured. The stranger halted, removing his hat. He was no stranger after all, William Merrick's younger partner, Mr. Lionel Fox, the junior solicitor we had met fleetingly in the early days of the Belfort lawsuit. His normally placid features now bore lines of fatigue. "Captain Hastings, M. Poirot, my apologies for accosting you, but urgent business compels me." His voice quavered, droplets glittered on his eyelashes. "Miss Belfort begged me to intercept you the moment you landed." I stiffened. "Miss Belfort? Iris is still in Brussels." Fox shook his head. "She crossed yesterday." "There has been," he swallowed, "an attempted burglary at Belfort House. It failed, but it has left her badly shaken. The thieves searched only her study, drawers rifled, the safe jimmied. They ignored jewelry, money, everything but the files concerning the Saison sale. Worse, one intruder left behind this." From his pocket he produced a small hexagonal scarab carved in pale chalcedony, identical in style to the amulet seized from Colonel Darnley. The symbol rode back again, grotesquely revived. Poirot took the carving in gloved fingertips, turning it to catch the dim glow. "Forgive me, Monsieur Fox, precisely when did the attempt occur?" "Night before last, shortly after Iris returned from the continent. Police arrived within minutes, but the men had vanished into the fog." "Iris was unhurt?" "Physically, yes. Yet she fears the burglars will strike again, perhaps during tomorrow's preview at the Tate." "Ah yes, the Tate." Its trustees had advanced the date of the fundraising preview, promoting the reunited Van Eyck panel as centerpiece. The gala would gather financiers, diplomats, and critics, a ripe stage for sensational mischief. Poirot's eyes glittered through the mist. "Then we shall attend, naturally." Fox sighed relief. "You will find Miss Belfort at her father's townhouse in Carlton Gardens." "She." A whistle shrieked behind us, porter signaling baggage could be claimed, but Fox broke off as 2 constables strode from the customs shed. One hailed, "M. Hercule Poirot?" Receiving confirmation, he delivered a telegram. Poirot opened it, scanned, and handed to me. "From Chief Inspector Japp, need meet tonight, further development Belfort and Van Eyck affairs, hold yourself ready, Japp." I pressed lips. Not even a single night's sleep. Poirot smiled ruefully. "We follow duty, mon ami." Besides, his gaze returned to the scarab, the beetle refuses to sleep. We dined hastily at Whitehaven Mansions. Georges produced omelets and a restorative tisane, then motored through slick streets to Scotland Yard. Japp greeted us with grunt of satisfaction. A map upon his desk bristled with pins, red across Bloomsbury, blue near the Tate, yellow clustering south of the river. "What ho, Poirot?" Thought I'd lost my best amateur inspector to the Belgians outright. He waved at the map. Take a gander, 6 break-ins the past 4 nights, all at warehouses or townhouses belonging to big-name collectors, and all limited to document files, provenance certs, estate papers, insurer notes. Nothing else taken. Calling card each time? A scarab carved on ivory sliver. He pointed. Among the victims, Sir Eldred Fenton holds a Monet contested by Canadian heirs, Lady O'Neill, her Botticelli under Italian claim, and now Belfort House. Poirot knitted fingers beneath chin. A pattern emerges. Someone hunts proofs of forced sales to strengthen restitution cases. Not for robbery's gain, but for political leverage, perhaps sale to rival State Museum, perhaps blackmail. State Museum, Jap huffed. Spies and scarabs. But see here. He slid across a photograph, Lucien DeVos, head shaved, cassock, jaw scar. Picked up in Namur thanks to you. He has sung a merry song, said he joined Lady Constance's scheme only after leaving a coterie called Lumière Nouvelle, Belgian radicals who claim imperial powers robbed European culture. Their emblem, scarab and sunburst. Poirot's eyes flickered. Thus radical zeal merges with expropriation. But DeVos in custody cannot stage London raids. So another cell operates here. Jap nodded. We suspect a pair, one tall, one slight, seen near O'Neill Mansion. Disguise is clever. We can't get ahead. Poirot said, they will strike next where symbolism yields greatest publicity, tomorrow's Tate viewing. Jap snorted. We'll have the place blanketed. Blankets smother art, Poirot countered. Let us instead weave a net unnoticed. He requested lists of invited dignitaries, plans of the galleries, and rosters of contractors. Jap promised copies by dawn. We parted after midnight, fog still thick. Morning of the preview, Tate staff bustled like ants. Floral displays framed entrance, a scarlet rope corridor guided patrons to the Turner wing, temporarily repurposed. At center upon raised dais under tempered glass stood the restored Van Eyck panel, haloed by discreet spotlights. Guards from Argus security lined walls, their earpieces shimmering. I accompanied Iris Belfort and Phoebe Lyle through staff door. Iris's gloved hands trembled ever so slightly, but her chin lifted. Phoebe, notepad tucked beneath reticule, scanned the scene with bright eyes. Poirot, immaculate in morning coat, already conversed with Conservator General Dr. Olive Penberry, a stooped woman whose magnifiers dangled from silver chain. Penberry ushered us to dais. The panel's jewel hues, sapphire tunics, carmine cloaks, gold tesserae, seemed to breathe in the gallery's controlled light. A marvel, I whispered. Indeed, said Penberry. And a miracle of restoration. Note the glimmer along St. John's cope, pure azurite revealed after smoke varnish removed. Poirot asked whether security glass bore vibration sensors. Penberry confirmed. At 11 sharp, invited guests trickled, bankers, baronesses, an American film couple. Jap mingled disguised in swallowtail, mustache waxed. Poirot stationed himself near champagne table. At 11:30, Phoebe beckoned me aside. Captain, do you recognize that man by the Caravaggio? I saw a tall figure in evening suit, face half hidden by wing collar. Something about the jawline. Lionel Fox, I ventured. No, Phoebe said. His ears differ. And Fox left for court just now. I glimpsed him outside with briefs. The man slipped into a service alcove. Phoebe and I followed. The corridor beyond curved to packing bay. He vanished behind a false panel left ajar. We peered, narrow stair descended to basement. We withdrew to find Poirot. As I relayed story, sudden commotion erupted from opposite side. Iris, standing at dais, collapsed. Attendants rushed. Poirot's gaze darted to stair alcove, then to Iris. He sprinted to dais, knelt. Iris's pulse weak but steady. Dr. Penberry fanned her. On dais under the glass the Van Eyck panel still stood, but I noticed a faint haze upon inside surface, condensation. Poirot barked, Jap, seal exits. One intruder below, the other perhaps within glass. Glass? I looked. From top edge protruded thin rubber gasket, newer than rest. Poirot pressed hidden latch, panel glass swung open. Inside lay a substitute, a photographic reproduction. The real panel gone. We raced to basement stairs. Petrol fumes stung. Below, wide doors gaped onto loading quay where 2 lorries idled. A guard lay bound near pallet truck. The tall man hoisted crate into lorry. Phoebe seized fallen crowbar, swung, it glanced, ripping his sleeve. The man shoved her, I tackled him. Crate toppled but remained shut. Poirot snatched crowbar, brandished with surprising vigor. Halt, monsieur. Jap's men flooded stair, thief subdued. Upstairs, Iris revived. She confessed she had accepted medicinal water from a man who claimed to be museum doctor, shorter accomplice, chloroform laced. Cub now retrieved. Under questioning, tall thief identified as Anton Philip, Czech art student turned radical, partner, still at large, Catherine Morel, ex-Argus guard dismissed months earlier. Search ensued. Morel found disguised as caterer, pistol hidden in cake box. Scarab tattoo on wrist. Panel recovered intact, dampness from condensation while inside underground passage. That evening, after statements, we gathered in Poirot's apartment, Iris, Phoebe, Dr. Pinberry, Jap. Fire crackled. Poirot summarized. Lady Constance's conspirator, DeVos, furnished Lumière Nouvelle lists of contested works. They sought to liberate them into clandestine trust, returned via black market to original nations. They needed funds, thus they attempted to ransom Van Eyck. Why chloroform Miss Belfort? Pinberry asked. To steal her security pass and sow chaos. Also symbolism, she, descendant of contested ownership, made unconscious while panel taken, statement to press. Phoebe eyed Poirot. But you suspected them early? My dear mademoiselle, note sequence, burglaries targeted documents, not art, as radicals need proof to negotiate. Only at the Tate, where publicity is unbeatable, would they attempt outright theft. The basement false panel with rubber gasket? I observed new seal during morning inspection, alerted guards quietly, but convicting required red-handed catch. He sipped tisane. Thus, while you followed tall man, I feigned concern for Miss Belfort, ensuring accomplice revealed. Iris smiled warmly. All is over, then? Perhaps, Poirot said gently. But restitution wars will outlive us. Yet each battle fought with justice, not violence, is victory. Jap rose, stretched. Another case tidy. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll find a pint that hasn't got Monet in its pedigree. Laughter eased tension. Phoebe turned to me, eyes bright. Captain, tomorrow you promised skating at Queen's Ice Club. I stammered but agreed. As they departed, Poirot remained by mantel. I asked, you will truly rest now? He smiled, eyes upon the gleam of scarab amulet atop bookcase. The beetle sleeps, Hastings, but dawn lies ever before him. And for Hercule Poirot, the little gray cells do not permit too long repose. He extinguished lamp save one reading sconce, its pool of light encircling desk, where new correspondence awaited, inquiries from Madrid, Stockholm, New York. I left him thus, small, fastidious figure in halo of lamplight, already charting next expedition across the chessboard of guilt and reparation, rolling truth ever onward toward the inevitable sunrise.